Hi, I'm Chrissy Cordingley, and this is my show, The Flare Up Show, and this special episode is produced in partnership with Clarissa, Burt, and in the Limelight Media. I originally created this show to advocate for myself through chronic illness, but today it's grown into a wellness show that's listened to all over the world. I love to practice well-being for the whole being. So if you're ready to rise, thrive, and elevate your life, stay tuned, enjoy the show, and thanks for listening. Hi, this is Chrissy, and I'm with the Flare Up Show. This show is produced by Clarissa, Burt, and in the Limelight Media. And today I have a really fabulous guest, Mark Charters. He's a medium, a psychic medium, life coach, and owner of the Blush Center for Healing in Northampton, Massachusetts. Mark has worked in the healing industry for over 30 years, guiding people from all walks of life around the world to find their power and transition through lost relationships, health crises, and career changes. His memoir, Become the Light Again, A Journey of Love, Loss, and the Light, illustrates how personal traumas can be embraced as lessons for our own spiritual growth. Utilizing the misfortunes and joys from his life, the stories he shares delve into the deeper meaning of life and death and what it means to rekindle the light within us that radiates out to the world. Welcome to the show, Mark. It's really great to have you here.
Yes, thank you so much, Chrissy, for having me. I'm really excited to be here today, and I look forward to this show. It's a lot of fun to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. We're going to have a lot of fun. So if we could just start at the beginning, let's just start with your memoir, because that's the story about you. And then there's other stories woven into your own story as well. Tell us a
Yeah,
little bit about why the memoir was in you to share with the world right now, and maybe tell us a little bit about your story.
sure. The book came actually at a time of crisis. I was been wanting to write for many years, but I had a 25-year business, healing business, massage therapy that I was working all over the country with celebrities and things. And COVID knocked it out in one day. And so I had to scramble a little. And Spirit told me to write. I actually had lost a daughter many years ago, and she came to me and said, "It's time to write the book." So I started, and I wrote the book within 4 months. And really, what the theme of the book is about is that all our tragedies in our lives can be turned out to be really good gifts for us to help us find deeper meaning to the existence of us on this earth. And so I kind of been through a really difficult life in one way, where the book starts out where I'm about to be shot. I'm living on the streets. I was a homeless junkie probably around 32 years ago, eating out of dumpsters, about to end it all. And I was about to be shot. And in that moment, I had a psychic vision, and my whole life was shown before me. So it starts with that. And really, what it does is it bounces around with stories about what led me to the streets, but then also the spiritual gift of what led me from the streets back into living my life. And I took that concept and I kind of woven into each story a little bit. About one story is about losing my daughter, and I was 2 years sober, and I made it through that. Took quite a while. It's still a problem. Is for you constantly work on the grief of it. Other parts of the book are really about stories of me hitchhiking and living on the streets and going through things when I was little, older, and even stories of clients that come in, whether it was murder, suicide. Being a psychic medium, I work with many people that have lost children, especially now with the drug epidemic and the overdosing. A lot of families come to me. So I wanted to present to the world that I've been through quite a lot of things, and it's like, but I love my life. And I let my life bury me on the streets. But for some reason, when I became willing, which we all can, that we can turn our lives around with the help of something higher than us that comes in. I call it unconditional love, whether the traditional is a God-centered or a Christ-centered or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just love. And so I took that mission, wrote it in the book, many beautiful stories about how people interact in our lives, how they come and go in our life for specific reasons. And I think we're all interconnected. So that's what the book really talks about. And I developed that because my work is about stories. I constantly am reading about people's stories. Spirit gives me them. So, like, say you come into me and I'll get your life story and I share it back with you and find different parts that you're showing me through spirit or a loved one that helps you move forward in your life. And so
Mhm.
I look for tragedy a lot of times, or it's presented. And those are the things that block us from really moving forward. But we can turn those into joy, not joy, but to find joy through them. So, does that clarify a little bit about the book and about what I do?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I was reading about like when you had that moment with the vision, that
Yes,
moment just after you were about to be shot and you're in the shower and you see the blue light
yes,
that speaks to you. I I've heard from other mediums and mystics about blue light being a real message of love. And so
yes,
I was really, really struck by that and how true that sounded. Because even just this morning, I was reading something about be the messenger of love, and it was talking about blue lights and blue energy. And then I was preparing and refreshing myself with the beginning of your story. I'm like, oh, it all just lines up. And that's what I love about the stories too. And what you do is it's sort of like that hindsight 2020, but it's a comfort. It's sort of like, all is not lost. There was a purpose to all of this, and life is
yes.
mosaic. And some pieces are beautiful and perfect, and some are a little more broken, but together, all roads will lead us home, right?
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting. I call it the blue orb or the blue
Hmm.
light. And you'll see that light that I explained. It comes up quite a few times throughout the stories. Some at
Hmm.
really crucial times, some at really just beautiful times. And what it is that we're broken. We're all broken. And but that brokenness is our vulnerability. And that's where our strength is in
Hmm.
our vulnerability. And so I show a lot of the stories bring up the vulnerability in my life and even in some other people's lives in the story. And so there's always hope. But the one thing I do share toward the beginning and the end, and maybe in between, is that we make the choice. We have free will. And I had a choice to give up, and I did for many years. But then I chose to love, to feel the love of something higher than me. And the first time I really felt that was on the street after being shot. And my life transformed like overnight. It was quite, I mean, it doesn't mean I didn't have problems that we all have, but I found a deeper faith and a purpose to live again. And I didn't come from the streets. My dad taught at Yale. He was a cardiologist, ran a hospital. My mom, we were kind of well off in the sense of
Hmm.
materialistically, but some parts of us were spiritually bankrupt. And so I had to find that and move forward. My mom was the one really gave me that. And I think I explained that a little in the book, but I had to take it for my own life and move it forward. So it's quite beautiful. And I see that's what I try to do to help instill the hope in my clients that come to me.
Hmm. Would you be willing to share maybe one or two of the stories of your clients? I know there was one where you talk about like a mother that lost both of her children. Both of her children chose not to continue with life.
Yes, yes. That one was a really hard one in the sense of that it wasn't hard for me, but it's just an intense one. And we all know someone who's lost a child. And in this situation, it was they came and they when we lose children, we think there's something wrong on the other side, like we did something wrong, or what could we have done different, or anything like that. What I've always found when I'm psychically and doing mediumship with clients that come to me in that story is that they're coming through to tell you everything's all right. that it was their time, whether they chose it or not, and that they want us to live our lives fulfilling. In that case, I have a few stories of parents losing two kids, and I've written the book, but there's other ones that come in. So, but what it is one of them was a person came to me and they lost a child within the day or two, and it was drastic. I mean, it was they really went through a lot of time. That person I channeled coming through, it was a child, a young person, teenage, them came through and said, "I'm all right." And they gave me an example of a broken dish, showing that happened the day before or something like that. And so, but it was like another follow-up of another death of another child a while before. And so this person was hit with two deaths in a short amount of time. And they were hopeless. But once they hear that I get messages from the other side that everything is all right, it calms them a bit. It doesn't make the grief go away. It doesn't make the pain go away, but it gives them a sense of connection. And whoever's lost a child knows that we just disconnect. Something, we die, a part of us. But then we have to start reliving through the pain slowly and growing in and starting to manifest our life again. They want us in that situation. They want us to know that we've done our best with them and that to move on, not to ignore them, but move on and try to live our life, not die in memory of them. But we all go through, like even with my daughter, it took me a good couple of years to start living again, to the point of where I got so sick and they gave me my last rites. And that's when I had to make another choice to live again. So it's a powerful story.
Very powerful. It's the fear of death is so fascinating in a way. It's the human experience, and a lot of our fears, if we get to the core of them, even if we say we're afraid of heights or spiders, it really comes down to death, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's our basic. So what if people were really struggling with the concept of life and death, and they're really picturing death as this finite or awful or lonely or cold place? What kind of hope could you give someone about the next step
Well,
after we breathe our last breath?
there's two aspects of the facing and the fear of death.
Mm-hmm.
One is, where do we go? But the other is, are we really living now on earth? And there's the old saying about everyone has a point in their life to face their own mortality. And once we accept that, we start to live.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've realized in my work that I do, and even in my own life, that I ran from my life for many years and feared death. But that shooting that I had, the about to be shot, I had to face my death again, and then really give into what is my life about. And I started living, even little bits of the day. I started to be present. When we're present, we live life. We don't think of death. We just live life. But when we don't live life, death seems like it's an end of something we never got to do. But when we're manifesting and growing through life, no matter how it's existing, we only have the moment. Every moment is like life. So there's that aspect. But then there is the other side, which, believe me, I'm a psychic medium. I had it since I was young, but I had no clue about it. A little bit, but no one supported it. So I doubted it. I had a fight with what God was. I didn't believe, and I ran from death. And I always thought it was maybe nothing or whatever, a black hole or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
As I've been doing readings, like you come to me and you have a sibling that passed, and you think they're just nowhere. And then all of a sudden I'm describing to you, they're on the other side watching everything you do. And they're in total love, unconditional love. And there's no way that I could know what I describe about you. I can't Google it. I can't, like, everyone thinks I Google, and like, and I tell them what I'm going to tell you, you wouldn't want on Google. Do you understand? So that's what brings them hope. Like, they're happy. So I will join them when they die. And the beautiful part is I've had a few situations, even with my mother. She passed many years ago, Christmas Day, her favorite day. And as I'm sitting there watching her slowly leave this earth, I see 5 to maybe 10 of her relatives coming and reaching their hands out to her, pulling her back to their family. And she resisted, and she'd wake up. And I visually see this because I'm psyched. My siblings wouldn't see this. It's just a different thing. So I try to show people that the world is infinite on the other side. There's no time frame. That's why I can look at something 1,000 years ago and mention it now, or something way ahead. And it's not me. It comes through me. It's not my gift is just, for some reason, I can hear, feel, taste, see things. But that reassurance of a loved one coming through helps people to relax. And every loved one wants us to live for today. Not in a wild way, but in a way of unconditional love. And they will pick out things you're not working on. And it's amazing what can come up, So those are the two concepts, if that makes sense to you.
It really does. Thank you.
Yeah.
And other than death, which of course would be a big one, but what other situations or circumstances would someone seek your help, or what other situations would the spirit realm have for people in living today that could help them work
now through? I've worked on many different topics that people come to me. I mean, I had a situation where a bar called me up and said I need to do readings in their bar, and it was quite interesting because and that brought in a lot of different things, but I did it and I learned a lot from it. But a lot of the topics are health is a big one. Fear of a loved one's health, or fear of their own health. And sometimes I'm not a doctor and I don't medically say anything, but I'll pick up different parts of the body that seem to be stuck. And usually when I channel someone, say your neck, here's an example. This will be in the next book that comes out, is a woman came to me and she had a softball-sized lump on the back of her back. She came to me in a lot of pain about it. All the doctors checked out everything. It was just a lump of flesh, like softball size. So I put my hand on it and I saw the whole picture of her. And she kept getting hit and hurt by her boyfriend, who she left already and made her life, but she never left the grief of it. So when I touched it and talked to her about it, she resisted and then finally opened up and sobbed for about half hour. Within 2 minutes after that, the whole thing disappeared. So that's a health kind of thing that can come. People come to me. Other thing is relationships. Probably 70% of the clients I have are women. And a lot of them come from me. They're stuck in marriages or relationships that are very harmful to them. I do get men with the same thing, but primarily it's women. And what I always find with most of the women is they're looking to blame the man or their partner, I'll say. Yes, their partner isn't acting in a certain way, but when I start channeling, I find similarities between what happened to them when they were little, and they've just remarried the comfort of that. And I think a lot of people understand this and so I'll all of a sudden say you're in a bad marriage. I'm making this up, okay? I'm not. And you're stuck, and your man is very critical, or your partner is. And then all of a sudden I see you at 12 and your mom or dad are like that, and they're just cutting you down all the time. Once they make the connection, something surges in them and they see the connection, and the kid starts attaching to the adult again, and the fear dissipates into action. And so I help people start living their lives and facing truth. It's easier a lot of times, we think, to live in denial, to avoid pain, avoid like a short-term pain versus really facing truth, getting over that pain and moving on. Loneliness can come into that. So that's another relationships. A lot, like I said, is with suicide, but even murder, I get a lot. Or people being lost, or even very light things. People call me about wedding rings or about money, not wanting to get the lottery, but I had a woman call me and she couldn't find the will. And her husband came through and said, it's down in the basement, go around 2 bookshelves in the middle of the bookcase. And she came to me, she left. I was like, I don't know. That's what. And she called me like 2 hours later and said, I found it. It's so helpful. Thank you. So it's amazing. And it never ceases to amaze me, things that come in. And I work with children up to, like, parents are with them, but they can come in at 8, 9, 10, 14, 16. And so I'm a life coach. I'm not just a psychic medium. And I've also, I'm a healer, energetic healer. I've been 30 years at this work. So I can come from a lot of different angles. So those are all the different types of clients that I get. And there will be new ones that'll come. Sometimes I get people, do I get a new car? Or should I marry this man? Or even babies, I don't know if you got the last chapter.
No, I didn't.
It's quite interesting is that I'll have a couple come in, or even in my I do public readings that are like Spirit Talk every Thursday at my studio. It's a walk-in where people pay a little amount of money and they can get public reading. It's called gallery style readings.
I like it.
And I'll look at someone, I'm like, oh my God, I see a daughter coming in about a year and a half. And I'll name the date, name the daughter, and they're like, you're crazy. That doesn't make it. I'm not even interested. Christmas, 2 years later, I get a call. You're right. It was a daughter. I got pregnant. It was October 9th. And the name was Charlotte, like you said. And so I can see, for some reason, I see things ahead. They're given to me. I don't see them. And I just turn the energy that I receive into words. And so it's quite interesting. That's a big one. A lot of people, women, come back to me and say, oh my God, here's my baby. You were right. And they'll send a picture and things. So it's quite beautiful. Yeah. It mixes in a lot of different ways. And every day is something new. And I know if you're in your work or whatever you do, you find new things that come to you, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's the best way to live, where it almost feels like an adventure. The way you described, like the little child coming back to the big person that they are now, it's been described to me before as soul fracture, and that's where that wholeness comes. You mentioned we're broken, and this is really just about, again, integrating the pieces of ourselves that maybe were left in other places. But it's really quite beautiful to see, even with yourself, right, what you've been able to accomplish and help people with as you healed and became whole again, right? Like, it was all there for you, and you gathered yourself together, you were given, and now you get to share that with so many other people, and it's such a gift. It's amazing. So
and it is quite, because we run when there's trauma at a young age. And I've had a lot of trauma. I was sick, nearly died with encephalitis. I didn't function well with my brain, so I went into more hands-on stuff. My dad was an academic, but I couldn't do good in that, failed in it. So I went into cooking and baking. I was a pastry chef, worked for Disney and ran the bakery for Vail, did a lot of different things. But then I went into massage. And eventually my brain came back. But that trauma led me down a path that gave me so much more. But the trauma itself led to deficiencies about self-love, about I'm not worthy. And once at 50, I'm 64 now, but at 50, I made that healing. And a second time, a deeper one. And I became friends with that kid again. And my life really grew another whole chapter. So
Mhm.
it is. And I think we all struggle with that. Even if we come from good families, we could have little bits of trauma that we're all growing. The key is feeling it in the moment so we can let it come out and out. And then it doesn't run us. It's not a secret anymore. So if that makes sense to you.
It really does. I experienced this myself earlier this year, going through many cycles of things, and we're working with someone similar to you. Um, we did some of that like inner work and visions of things, and it was so random, some of the stories that came up in my mind. One of them was um being lied about a birthday party that someone said I was invited, but gave me the wrong time. So clearly I would show up when the party was over, and it was like
Yeah.
a bit like it was really embarrassing. And it was so interesting how like emotional that was. And
Yeah.
I don't get migraines anymore. I'm like, that is so strange. Like such a random hurt. And there was more to it. It was like the way my parents responded to this. Like there was so much to it. But again, just that like giving that little girl in me some love instead of feeling embarrassed about being, ashamed. Um, like it's so remarkable how much our bodies and our minds and our spirits are intertwined. And
Yes.
we have to be willing to sit with that discomfort. And that's why people like you are so helpful, because it's not always easy. We're not really taught that as we're growing up. So
Yeah.
to have a companion like you who can nurture and help our soul figure out what it needs, or what's missing, or what it's trying to get to, so helpful for people out there trying to understand how this all works, because it's
Yeah.
complex.
Yes. And what I always reaffirm to my clients is that I'm not doing the work for you. I'm showing you the work that is in you. And then
Mhm.
you can make a choice to move forward with it. Because
Yeah.
a lot of times our ego denies it because we're living in fight or flight. But once they feel it and they feel comfortable in my presence, in the therapy that I do in the life coaching, they get vulnerable and then all the emotion comes up. And I've had that experience where I was allergic to everything.
Mhm.
Once I healed, all my allergies disappeared. And it was all related to not being able to digest. Eating is love,
Yes.
dairy, all the different things. Yes, there is some chemical components to it, but even with that, 99% of all my allergies and illnesses disappeared.
Mhm.
And we are really so connected between the thought process, the spiritual part of us, the physical part of us. And we can't just jump to spiritual and ignore. We can't be a perfect yogi until we work through all these things. But even the perfect yogi can get stuck in traffic or something like that.
Yeah,
And it comes back to the moment again, to feel. And it's really important. So
I love
if
that.
that
Thank you. No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Where can people find your book, and how can they find you to come work with you?
Well, I have a website. It's called www.mediumlifecoach.com. You can click onto that. It'll say purchase my book. There's a button you hit and it goes right to Amazon and you
Awesome.
can get that. You can go to my Facebook page, which is Mark Charter's Medium Life Coach. You'll
Mhm.
see a lot of my baking. I bake every day and I ship it all over the world for free.
That's
My daughter
amazing.
died many years ago and she came to me and said, this is the way you can show your love to the world through me.
Oh,
So this morning I baked gingerbread cookies. I baked brownies, Ghirardelli shaved chocolate chip cookies, and I'll ship those out to all my clients.
oh, nice.
So they can see
I'll
that
send you
on
my
my
address
Facebook
later.
page.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also I have Mark Charter's Medium, my Instagram. You'll see pictures
Mhm.
of different things on there about, but the website you can schedule online. It'll describe what I do, what kind of session you want, and Or you can just call me, the phone number, and text me is another really way. I'm in now 22 countries and I help people all over the world. So I help them help themselves is
That's
really what it is.
beautiful. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. You made me think I've been watching Ted Lasso and he always bakes cookies for his boss every morning, but he pretends he gets it from a bakery and she looks forward to these cookies every single morning. And you just made me think of that. It's his little way of showing love. And
Yeah. And I love it's a business I got burnt out in when I was
yes,
working, but I changed it to love. And
yes.
and what I do is I have another thing coming. It's called the Mealtime Mystic. And it's a show that I'm working on where I bring psychic, family, and family heirloom recipes together. So, like, if your grandma had a recipe and I invite you to my studio and we bake it, and then we're channeling her, but then we invite your family to sit down and we eat together, and I'm channeling with the whole family, bringing them together with food, family, and the psychic mediumship. That is I'm working on now. I have the trademark and the media rights, but that's going to be in a couple of years is
That's
what my goal is.
amazing. I
That's
love
another
it.
love. My daughter brought that to me. She said you got to do that. So
I
it's
love I love
yeah,
that. That needs to be
yeah.
on
Oh,
like TLC or H like that needs to be.
exactly. And I'm working to do the pilot soon so I can promote it to the next level. But so I'm really enjoying my life. It's
Yes, no
been
doubt. Yes.
and I think that's what the whole book is about, that you
Mhm.
can take everything, all the difficult times, and turn them into lessons to live. And like I would understand you better if you lost a child because I did. So I feel it's a gift for me. And
Mhm.
and even if I didn't lose a child, I have other things. And I think that's what brings us together as humans, our suffering, but also our joy brings us together. And we have a choice to share both. And I think that's what life is about, is the meaningness of that. Okay.
It's love. It's unconditional
Yeah.
love. Thank you so much, Mark. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Everybody, please go check out the show notes, go find Mark and sign up to get some baking. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And I'll send you cookies wherever you are.